Hoi, ik ben Bart en dit is Patrick en samen gaan we op zoek naar authentieke verhalen van inspirerende leiders.
En hierbij laten we ons leiden door onze gesprekspartner, als een soort van kettingbrief.
En daarin delen ze hun visie op leiderschap, hun belangrijkste kantelmomenten en ook waar ze nog van dromen.
En natuurlijk proberen we op deze manier ook jou te inspireren.
Welkom bij The Road to Angela. Dag beste luisteraars, welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van The Road to Angela. En deze keer zitten we in Mechelen, in het kloppend hart van Telenet. En we zitten bij John Porter, CEO van Telenet, een wereldburger die ondertussen al meer dan 10 jaar aan het stuur staat van een van de meest toonaangevende telecombedrijven van ons land. We gaan dit interview uiteraard in het Engels hebben. John, thank you for having us. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. It's my pleasure.
Can you, for our listeners, perhaps quickly give a quick introduction on yourself?
Okay, sure. Well, I was, as you can tell from my accent, which I can't shake, I was born in the United States in 1957. So I've been around a bit, but do consider myself a bit of a global citizen, having some of my childhood in the UK, having lived in Yugoslavia for 2 years. After attending university in the US. I have also worked in 6 countries on 3 continents, including, of course, Australia and Europe, in addition to the US. And it's my global life is something that I enjoy and has opened up a lot of opportunities for me, both personally and professionally.
Okay.
So it's great to be with you.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. And so you've been working for over 10 years now? At
13, to be precise.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as CEO here. Can you tell us a bit more about the trajectory professionally up until now and up until today then? Yeah.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I was living and working in Yugoslavia in 1980 and 81 at a very interesting time in the history of that country. Tito died while I was there, and the country rapidly devolved into the Balkan War. I wasn't there for that, fortunately. But came back to the U.S. and decided I needed to get some professional work. And I was living in New York City with 3 of my college friends. Got installed with this thing called cable TV. And in a discussion with my mother, who was hoping that I was going to go to some kind of professional life, I said, "Listen, I'm a history major. I don't know where to start looking for a professional career." And she said, "Well, what do you think is going to be big in the next 5 to 10 years? Go where the momentum is, where the action is." I said, "Well, I just got installed with cable. I think it's going to be big." Fortunately, that was literally the ground floor for the cable TV industry, and I was quickly hired in a management development program and sent to Florida, to Texas, Alabama, and Columbus, Ohio, going to bigger and bigger systems. One of the nice things about getting in the industry at that time was that everywhere I went, I was the top person in the company. So I was in the middle of Nowhereville, Texas, but I was the general manager. And I was 24 and I had 300 people working for me. And then I would go to a bigger place, and Mobile, Alabama, Pensacola, Florida, where I had 1,000 people working for me. I was still 26. And so I always was in that top leadership role. Because I was in an industry that was in the formative stages, I was given opportunities way beyond my, chronological age.
Yeah.
And after that, I moved north and went to Ohio and ended working out for the biggest media company in the world at that time, which was Time Warner, and was very instrumental in some of their international strategies, launched HBO and Cinemax in Scandinavia, and put together a joint venture in Japan. Got a taste for working outside of the U.S., and then I got a call from a headhunter who said, "Hey, would you like to take a look at this job or that job?" And I said, "You know what? I'm not going to do another job in the U.S., but if you have something international, I would consider it." I had gone to the Time Warner guys, and they said, "Listen, yeah, if you want something international, you can go be the COO of our JV that you worked on in Japan." And I was about to do that, and I got a call from the headhunter again, and he said, "Well, John, do you love your wife and your newly born son?" I said, "Yes, of course I do." And he said, "Well, I have a better offer for you than Japan, because if you go to Japan, you'll be divorced in 2 years and be hooking up with a tea lady, because the Japanese really know how to treat their men." So he said, "Yeah, Australia." And I said, "Yeah, I've always been intrigued with Australia." This was in 1994. And long story short, went home, told Susan, "Hey, what do you think about Australia?" She said, "Let's go." And kind of went down there and went from the biggest media company in the world to the smallest, which was basically a piece of paper that said you have the right to launch 8 channels over whatever technology you want in Australia. Total pure startup. We raised every red cent that we put into that company and sold it 20 years later for an enterprise value of 2.5 billion Australian dollars. So it worked out well.
Yeah.
And then I was really thinking about retiring from the industry, and then I started working with the private equity that had underpinned our growth at one point. And I realized I did some work to find out why I wasn't really happy, just making money and playing golf and, living the life and going to the beach. And I discovered that what I really like about work is working with big companies and articulating a vision, a strategy, building a culture, building momentum for that culture, getting all the noses pointed in the same direction. And an opportunity came back with Liberty Global, who had been an investor in our company in Australia. And I had a couple of opportunities, actually, but I was really intrigued by Telenet, because Telenet has a really unique and special culture, which we can talk about. But yeah, so came here in 2013, and haven't looked back. It's been a great experience. It's not the same company I joined, which obviously reflects some of what I've done, but some of the way the market has moved, and the way the technology's moved, and the ambition of Liberty Global, and it's been terrific.
Okay.
I was wondering, because you were saying when you were 23 and 26, you had 300 and 1,000 people you were managing. Did it feel natural for you at that age, or did you? What did you learn from that period?
Well, I learned that leadership is both nature and nurture. I think to some extent, I had always wanted to be a leader. I have felt like a leader. In fact, my mother used to say, "John's never been on a team where he didn't want to be the captain." So that's
a bit of a pattern.
That's pretty true. Yeah. But you know what? I did kind of fall into it. I was a bit lucky. There was just a dearth of available leadership talent. My first boss, where I was like the number 2 in St. Petersburg, Florida, was a videographer who just got back from Vietnam. I mean, that was his qualifications to run that big, which was quite a big business. And to have somebody who, was educated the way I was and had the global experience that I had even had up to that point was new. I mean, that environment doesn't exist today, of course, and it's a lot more challenging for young people to get on that trajectory. But yeah, I had other leadership roles, and I was captain of the lacrosse team, and I did different things in different situations, which just reinforced my appetite for leadership. I certainly didn't know much, but some things do come instinctually if you're in the business of organizing groups of people to do things together. So
and so because you you studied history. And of course, you've got that mirror or that motivational quote from your mother to say, dream big, think big. When did you make a decision to go into this kind of more business-like activities instead of pursuing things that would be more logical, between brackets, having studied history?
Well, that goes to the philosophy of studying the liberal arts. The liberal arts are not meant to channel you into a specific career. The liberal arts basically teaches you the fundamentals of being successful in society, in business, in wherever in the arts, wherever you choose to go. Because what are the lowest common denominator learnings and values that you get from studying liberal arts, be it be philosophy, political science, economics, whatever. Basically, critical thinking is the most important one. Don't just take what you see at face value. Don't take what you hear at face value. Do the work, form your own opinions, make your own decisions. Also teaches you how to do research, teaches you how to articulate that assimilation of knowledge that you've gotten through, years of study and with your eyes wide open, looking at, the general what's going on in the world, and then being able to translate that into verbally or in a written way into stuff that's meaningful for people.
Yep.
So I'm a strong believer in the liberal arts. I'm not a huge fan of just rote learning that, channels people where people who are 16, 17, 18 years old need to decide what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. I mean, I've seen that fail plenty of times. One of my sons right now he's an architect. He's an urban designer in Sydney. And he's like, I don't like this. I was like, oh, you've been at it for 7 years. You've been studying it for 7 years. He's worked in it for a year. And he's like, it's very cold. People don't talk to each other. It's very, I'm like, just stick it out a little while longer. We've made a big investment in this. But so, I think you can be as successful, if not more so, with some exposure to the liberal arts. Yep. I'm a fan.
Yeah, nice to hear. And perhaps also a quick reflection towards, because I found it quite surprisingly to hear that kind of message just coming from a mother to dream big and taking also a kind of risk. Is it something that you take along from your parents, from your mother throughout your life? Is it something that she has lived herself like that?
Yeah, well, my mother, and it was still to this day an inspiration to me. She's 91 years old.
Wow.
She was at a No Kings protest in Washington, D.C. yesterday, or the day before yesterday.
That's cool.
And with a big sign, said, doing it for the grandchildren, basically. No, she's a special person. She grew up very traditionally, in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And then she got married and had me when she was 22. So, we're close in age. And she had a big epiphany when my parents split up, and we were obviously pretty close in the years since then. She's a very clear-minded person. She's half Dutch, by the way, so that's probably
that helps.
That's why she's so forthright. And she's very authentic, and she also is progressive. She was a proto-feminist back in the 70s and did a lot of interesting stuff, fought for a lot of important legislation in the U.S., Title IX, which is a very important piece of legislation to forced public universities to treat girls the same as boys when it came to sports and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's always been inspiring and challenging too. I mean, very challenging. Not to say, do your homework and do this, but bigger ideas than that. And also the other thing is, I was raised very hands-off. I mean, I would probably be turned into children's services if it was happening now. I mean, they had no idea where I was, what I was doing. At one point, I disappeared for a week when I was almost 16. I was 15.
Okay.
And I disappeared for a week with one of my best friends, a girl, and we just got on a bus and went to Florida. And, and they were like, he'll come back. Can you imagine?
Nice. You can't
imagine that anymore.
No, it wouldn't happen. And then I moved out when I was 17, and because I graduated high school when I was, just 17. And I never lived at home again. But I was close to my mother. My father I wasn't that close to. But no. So a different era, and different kinds of people, and certainly different attitudes about parenting.
Yeah.
And I also, you asked, does it still influence you today? The parenting does influence me, because I have a theory on parenting, which I've seen play out with my 4 kids, that there's a negative correlation to how much attention you pay to the child and their success in life. My third son, who's the architect, we used to, so it was boy, girl. So he was the third boy and the princess at the bottom. So literally we would all get in the car to go to the beach in Sydney, and we'd get about 2 kilometers down the road, and it's like, oh, is Adrian in the car? No. Oh, shit, we left him at home. He got no attention whatsoever. He's the same. He was in school in Brussels when we first moved here, and I came to him one day and said, well, you're thinking about schools you want to attend, for university? He goes, yeah, I've already applied and I've been accepted at, for early admission, so it's like, he just gets on with his life. Yeah. And then I come here and all the moms have to go home and bake cookies because the kids have exams. Oh, how old is your child? 13. I think he's going to survive without you baking cookies and hanging over him, while he's doing exams. But it's a completely different world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's go back for a while also to the Hoe Telenet period now. Mm-hmm. You talked about how things were a different era, but back at the time, I can imagine the last 13 years and what you foresee coming will also be some kind of different era. How have you seen your leadership role evolving throughout the years, and what you expect for the first couple of years to come, very specifically?
Well, I think the velocity of change is probably the biggest thing that I've seen over the last few years. Partially technologically enabled, partially competitively necessary. Mm-hmm. Partly is globalization, which has really made a lot of industries a lot more competitive and a lot more dynamically changing. If we take the media industry, for example, I mean, it's night and day. We certainly in the time that I've been at Telenet. So we also own Play Media, so I'm right in the thick of it as well. So it's been a period of accelerating change. And I think what, got leaders from there to here is not going to get them from here to there going forward. 15 years ago, say, or 10 or 15 years ago, leadership was more autocratic. It was more, hey, the decisions are going to get made in the corner office, and then we just throw them out to the factory, and the factory makes it and does it and, brings it to life. And then we go on to the next thing. Well, things are moving too quickly to have that kind of top-down funnel, that classic military-style hierarchy, which was effective when things were moving the way they were moving and when technology was not as complex, where, we're now in a period of virtualization where literally everything is software, of some kind. And now we're even moving post-software into where, we have to have things really super enabled, agentically or with, other AI functionality. So what we need is a different kind of leadership. We need leaders who are self-actualized, who are comfortable in their own skin, who don't have to own every single idea or every success story in the business. My personal philosophy of leadership has always been, I think, a bit progressive, because I'm not an autocrat by nature, and I believe in leading from in front, but I also believe in leading from behind. I believe in leading with empathy, which has not always been in favor. I mean, the business heroes of 20, 30 years ago there was a guy in Australia called Chainsaw Al Dunlap, who was seen as like the greatest businessman in Australian history. So, you can imagine what his style was like.
Yeah.
But I've been doing this for 45 years now and have had, a lot of success. So I believe in the approach that I take. And I think it is a style that is fit for the future because, particularly in an area of rapid technological change, you have to have created an organization, an operating model, and a culture that can turn on a dime, that has the versatility, that the level of innovation is high, the level of accountability is also high, that can be prepared for anything. And also in this period of AI, which we're going into, you can't have a control point. You have to let 1,000 flowers bloom, and then you can make some decisions about, return on capital and return on human focus and attention. But you don't want to strangle the baby in the crib. You want to make sure that people who are meeting, trying to meet the needs of customers are empowered, have the tools, technologies, and they're not waiting in line, with a bunch of other people who are trying to do the right thing to get stuff done.
And I hear you. And still, what you see now recently is how companies decide, for example, when it comes to the working at home policies and stuff, when things get more uncertain, people get in some kind of cramp and try to control things again. How do you feel about that? Like it's the wrong direction, or?
The operating model at Telenet is a scale agile framework, which means we're very flat. And we have teams, tribes, and circles. That's our hierarchy. That's you're either in a team, a tribe, or a circle. Well, you're in all those things, but it's at some level. To get done the things that we need to get done, we have to continue to operate that way. It's improved the velocity of our work. It's improved the quality of our work. We're also very dependent, as I think all companies are going to be, and particularly in Belgium, on outsourcing certain types of capabilities. We could never have the amount of software engineers that we need in Belgium, ever. So I don't care what we do. We can force everyone to take STEM and nothing but we're never going to get there. So we got people working for us in India. We got people working for us in Ukraine still. We got people all over the place. So it's a very multifaceted way that we get work done. It's very distributive.
Yeah.
And so we have the operating model that is distributive. We are very comfortable with that, and it's working for us. I think if one of the things that really works about it is putting the business decisioning right next to the technical people. So it's not like the business people have to, okay, I want to launch this product. Then they have to go to IT and say, or to architecture and say, hey, architecture, how are we going to build this product? And architecture goes to software, and software builds this product. And then testing, they test the product. And then, this other thing. And then, by the time you do that, your competitors have rebuilt their product 3 times over. So it's autocracy might work for getting people to work to the office if that's what you think is going to be good for your business. It doesn't work for the velocity of your business or the quality of the products and the code and everything else that you're trying to provide. So I think autocratic leadership can be successful in the short term, or in the case of, for example, when Telenet was a startup, a scale up, and you had my predecessor who was pretty autocratic. That's probably was a horses for courses. It was probably the right guy at the right time. But in this day and age, and with the complexity of the things we're trying to do, it wouldn't work.
And this way of working, is it something you started when you started working here, or did you had to make the change somewhere along the way? Or
yes, we made the change in 2018, 19. We started. It actually grew out of I was having lunches with just sort of each department could nominate somebody, and we have 12 or 14 people for a lunch with just me. I was the only management representative in the room, and a couple of them came and said. And I did a preamble, said, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, that's why we believe in it. And the guy said, I don't even remember his name. He said, John, I hear you. That sounds great. But given our operating model today, you'll never be able to do it. Because, by the way, I had several ideas along those lines. And I would take them to my boss. My boss would say, oh, yeah, that sounds good. And then he would take it to his boss and it would die. So he goes, we haven't been able to change anything about the way of working in the 10 years that I've been here. So that's when I started doing, more research on the Scale Agile model. And yeah, it's a model that, you can't throw the switch on and off. No. It takes years to build it. But we're operating it now. We're beyond base camp now. We're up there on the high peaks.
And it started then bottom up with those lunches.
Yeah, it started. That was the first idea, but then I was a strong sponsor of it.
Yeah, and do you still now at this point still have the feeling with people? Do you do, for example, still that kind of lunches to have the input of a?
I just did a 90-minute open Q&A fireside chat with a B2B just before this recording.
Yeah.
So I do it. Yeah, I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I like to do it, and obviously people they're interested. If they want to go right to the source, and I encourage my SLT to do them as well. Make yourself available, accessible. People, if you don't do it, people will assume that you're either standoffish or you have secrets or whatever. And fact is, we don't really have secrets. No. We're quite open and authentic. We have.
What does it mean for you to be a good, successful sponsor of change?
Getting change right and getting transformations right is a huge challenge. I think what it takes is, and my personal philosophy of leadership evolves around this idea, is that it takes head, heart, and guts in equal proportion. And I've said it many times, so copyright. You can't just be the smartest person in the room. You can't be the biggest risk taker, and you can't be the biggest bleeding heart, but you have to have a combination of all of those things to get people to embrace, believe, and move in a direction. And the guts part is just as important as the big idea, because you also have to have an appetite for risk, and you have to apply the right analytics to risk. That's the brain, and you have to understand how the change is going to impact people and how you can help people move beyond their general anxiety, their kind of fight or flight reflex to change. So you need those tools, and you need them in equal proportion. And I think that's where I see great leadership. That's what I see.
Nice. And John, what do you do when you don't have the answer? What do you do? For now, in these days, we're being confronted with problems to which the solutions don't yet exist. How do you do that?
It sounds simple, but I say I don't know. I mean, so I think being vulnerable is a part of also being a good leader. So if you have a chance to say I don't know, then that's you're helping actually. I often say to the person, what do you think? That's another way of trying to move forward. I don't know my senior leadership's team business as well as they know their business.
Yeah.
So that's for starters, right? Mm-hmm. So if they're going into a level of detail or whatever, so I don't know, I haven't heard about that. I tell me more, or whatever. So I don't have the answers to all things. I don't have the answer to many things. But I know how to put people together to get closer. And I definitely believe that, getting back to autocratic leadership, that I don't care how smart you are, one brain's not better than 10 brains. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes I have people come to me and say, John, like this decision-making process, it's too consensus-driven. I say to them, look, I'm not looking for consensus. I'm looking for collaboration. Mm-hmm. It's you don't understand it. And that helps clear it up for some people not. And I'm certainly not looking for consensus. And I'm happy to, at some point in the decision tree, just say, okay, debate's over, we're done, we're ready to go. And you may or may not agree with it, but you're a senior executive, you need to get on board. Do
you still do a lot of research yourself as well then, to those kind of problems?
Well, I'm finding my use of Claude and ChatGPT and Copilot are helping me with the depth and breadth of my research, to tell you the truth. And I'm using them a fair bit.
Yeah. Also in our podcast, we are having a look always for our guests on their tipping points in life, from early beginning until up to now. Are there certain significant tipping points you experienced already?
Many. I'm 68 years old.
Yeah. What is sort of the first thing that comes up comes to mind?
Well, obviously, I've made 3 big decisions about my career, and that sounds like very few, but they're the most important ones. Mm-hmm. As I said before, I left the biggest media company in the world to go to the smallest. So I was successful president of the Central Ohio, Columbus, Ohio division of Time Warner Cable at 32 years old. Yeah. But I was sitting there at the age of 35 and deciding that I had outgrown it. In fact, I said to Susan, my wife, she's like, why do you want to quit? I mean, we've got everything.
We got everything, yeah.
I said, listen, I can see myself in 30 years with the gold watch and the golf country club membership and the this and that. Like, that is not the vision I had for my life. So, moving to Australia. So obviously having this inner desire to accomplish things in an environment where I'm not naturally comfortable, or, first it was a startup. Second of all, it was a completely different country that I didn't even visit there until I, went down there to start the company. So I guess an appetite for risk, has to be acknowledged there. Also, I mean, I went to Yugoslavia because I wanted to go into the foreign service. Okay. And because that's what I thought, a history major could do. But a history major can do anything. Our prime minister is a history guy. So basically going to Yugoslavia, and I think I talked to my mother on the phone once in 2 years. I mean, I was basically just sink or swim in Yugoslavia. I was working there. And
the Yugoslavia, sorry to interrupt, it was after your studies you went to Yugoslavia, or when it was it on time?
I went there as doing some graduate work at the University of Zagreb. Yeah. That's what got me there initially. And then I just stayed, And so going there, that opened my mind to the world, essentially. I mean, I had lived in the UK, and I as a kid, so 4 years, and traveled on the continent while we lived in the UK. But going to Yugoslavia is like, okay, it's a big world out there. I can survive this. I can survive anything. And
what was most surprisingly for you in that time, in that period?
In that period,
yeah.
I don't know that anything was surprising in that way, but what I learned a lot about resilience. I can tell you that because I had to hustle for jobs. There wasn't a lot of English being spoken in Zagreb in 1979, 80. It was still pretty closed off. And I fell in with a really bohemian group of people, musicians, artists,
Also
it was
American or local people?
No, there were no Americans there. Zero. Yeah. It was, but I was a person of interest in Zagreb in that time. People, the American guy, the American guy. There were no Americans there, except unless they were in the embassy or. Yeah, I learned a lot about my ability to cut it in a very strange land, and I had a lot of friends and a lot of girlfriends because they wanted to come back. They wanted to get the green card back to America. So it was a very wonderful part of my life. So that was a huge inflection point as well, and then coming to Belgium. Deciding to bat up again in leading a big company. I did, as I mentioned at the beginning, I did some work with a coach, with a sort of mentoring person, and we talked, and then she did a 360 of people that I had worked with, and the community, and some investors, and blah blah blah. And so after all that, she would come in for the meeting. She's going to tell me, she just walked in the door. She goes, "You have to go back to work. This is too much. You're too good at basically running a big company with lots of people in it, And I realized she was right. It wasn't about making money for myself or other people or power or anything else. It was, for me, the gratification was in seeing a group of people very clear-eyed about the strategy, what we're trying to do, their role in it, the culture, the values of a big business. And this, Telenet is a big business, 3,500 direct employees. It's probably another 2,000 that work for us every day. Like I said, they could be in India, they could be, in Romania or whatever. But it's a lot of people, but you need to have the right systems and everything else to pull it off. So I like that challenge, and I was very grateful to the woman who did that research and came in that day and told me, "You just need to go back to work." I was 55. I thought I was going to get my handicap down to single digits, but I had to go back to work for at least 13 years.
Yeah. And so you became a father when you were living in Australia, right?
I had one when I was still in Ohio, but he was 2, and then we had 3 more kids in Australia.
Yeah. And they all lived they live in Australia now? Or
2 of them are in Australia, and the oldest one has 2 children, so I have 2 grandchildren there. And then my second son lives in Amsterdam. He's a musician. And then my third son also lives in Australia.
Yeah.
And then my daughter lives she went to university in Paris, and then she was in London, and then her visa ran out. And now she's in Belgium for the next 3 months.
And then
she goes back to graduate school in the UK.
Yeah.
So my globalism is passed down to the next generation.
Yeah, which is nice. Huh? Yeah.
Well, it's great I think it's a gift to your kids to let them know that their world is bigger than what they see, through the window. And I know I got that if I was fortunate. And then, by association, my kids have gotten that as well. So it's great for them.
Mm-hmm.
Did it also affect your leadership, the way you manage people, your international experience?
Yes, for sure. I saw a lot of things that I liked in different work cultures, and I saw a lot of things I didn't like. And probably in the U.S. work culture, there in the 80s and the early 90s, there's more things I didn't like. And so, for example, I thought that the work culture back then was misogynistic, and I think I was correct.
Yeah.
And I subsequently to that, in Australia and here, have had the benefit of working with fantastic women in senior executive roles, one of whom you've talked to.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't be as successful as I am if I hadn't thought about and applied that thinking to women at a very senior level.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been a big beneficiary of that. It was also the more autocratic way of working in the U.S., the chainsaw thing, But in Australia, what I learned was a positive thing, which is Australians are super authentic. I mean, you run into them anywhere, they're super authentic, right? They're not putting on airs. They're not pretending to be something that they're not. They like to have fun. And I think that that's something that I bring to my thought process and leadership style as well. Mm-hmm. I think you should be the same person, whether you're at home or in the office or you're out with your mates drinking some beers or whatever the case may be. I'm a strong believer that authenticity is going to get you a long way. And I think I learned a lot about that in Australia, because in America, you're in jeans and t-shirt when you're at home, and you put on in the 80s, like a 3-piece suit, and you went to work, and you really, it created, it's kind of like that streaming show Severance, you're a different person inside.
Yeah.
In their case, completely different than you are outside. And I learned about really living your authentic life in Australia.
Yeah.
So that's a couple examples, but.
And what did Belgium teach you?
Hang on for dear life. No. People ask me about when I came from Australia, like, oh, why did you come to Belgium? We're all trying to go to Australia, so, and why would you, kind of thing. I said, well, you know what? I actually find that there is a bit of some commonality between Belgium and Australia, particularly in this kind of work-life balance area, and, work hard, play hard, study hard, be as smart as you can, be successful, want to be successful. And then there, of course, are differences. But I do think from a sort of work-life balance and valuing the things, family and these kind of things, that there's quite a few similarities.
No.
More similar to Australia than to America, for sure.
Yeah.
And to the UK, more similar to Australia. So I think what I really value in leading a company in Belgium is, first of all, people are highly educated. I think they're motivated. I think that there is respect for the hierarchy, probably maybe a little bit too much respect sometimes, because they don't tell me when my baby's ugly. But some people, they're starting to after 13 years.
It takes some time.
It takes time. And yeah, it was when I first came here, it was all, you'd have a meeting, everybody say, okay, John, yeah, we'll do it. And then you go to the water cooler and you say, what the hell is he thinking about? That's old Belgium, I think. I mean, It's not happening in my company anymore. It doesn't work that way anymore. So I think it's a nice balance between, trying to get in line and do the right thing, but also be independent thinkers and innovators. And
okay,
if I didn't like working in Belgium, I wouldn't be here after 13 years.
Yeah, of course.
That's clear. And so, John, what the perception that you give to me is that you have a very clear vision, also a sufficient level of confidence, starting from your authenticity, of course, and knowing what you're capable of and what not. Can you reflect on a moment where your way of looking at things really shifted? You started looking completely different at things?
Well, I mean, I've had my confidence shaken from time to time. I mean, I particularly, starting in Australia, really, which was In America, I was working for a huge company. I just had to be a cog in the wheel. In Australia, it was a startup, and we had raised all the money that we put into it, so you feel a lot of accountability. We took the company public. We did bonds. We did commercial debt, high yield debt, 14% interest rates. In 1995. So there was a lot on the line. It had to work. And then there was also people who wanted to see us get killed, basically, like Murdoch and Packer and other media titans. And in 2001, you had the tech wreck where after the dot-com boom, there was no debt available for non-investment grade companies, and we were sitting on a bunch of debt. And we had Macquarie Bank on behalf of Rupert Murdoch trying to put us into bankruptcy. So at one point I wasn't sleeping very well, but at one point my general counsel walked in and said, "John, our outside counsel thinks we're technically insolvent." And I'm like, "Well, fire them and go find a counsel that doesn't think we're technically insolvent." And so she did. And, 11 years later, we sold the company for a lot of money. But, it's, you really put yourself out there and you don't really realize it until you're on the brink of failure, that this could all go horribly wrong. Now, caveat emptor, they put their money in eyes wide open. But on the other hand, I felt a lot of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
In that situation. It made me very anxious. But what it also did, I learned more in that 2-year period than I had done in my whole rest of my career. Mm-hmm. So it really set me up for leading with this whole authenticity, empathy theme, which I think has served me well since then.
Did you also ask for help, or what did you do to remain strong in that period?
Well, that was very much a period that required leading from the front. I had a banker that I was working with. I had to renegotiate 15 banking relationships. And he was this little Filipino guy. He was really hilarious. And I would come out of a bank meeting, "God, that guy, and I'd kill him, And he'd put his hand on my back and say, "John, it's a process," so he was great. But, at certain moments I had to just dig from within. I had one situation where some stuff was leaking to the press, and in Australia, they love good gossip on anything. So the business newspaper actually had a page 3 where it was gossip, and we were in it all. It seemed like every other day that we were going to go out, backwards. And so I called a meeting with all the employees in the headquarters. It's about 150 at that time, and I still get people relaying this speech to me, which I said, "Listen, the ship is sailing out of the port, and either you're up on the deck helping us put up the sails, or you're down in the hull drilling holes. And I'm gonna find you if you're doing that, and you'll be gone." But sometimes you really have to step up and own it.
Yeah, and be clear about the cultural behaviors you don't want to see.
Exactly. Yeah.
Looking back on all those things you've been telling us as well, what would be the one advice that you would give, or to your younger self, or to the younger people of today?
Well, persevere. I mean, that's kind of, if I had to put it into a nutshell, why I'm successful and, why I still want to do it, well past the retirement age in Belgium. Yeah. Yeah, persevere. And it's, try to keep things a little bit at arm's length, create a little bit of space. I see people who have a really strong fight or flight, reaction to things. Like, you get a piece of bad news, you're like, "What?" And you all of a sudden beating the table and everything. You get a piece of bad news, take a deep breath, think about it, think about how you feel about it, and, maybe even sleep on it, and then come the next day and try to figure out, okay, what's next? Because you have to be in the present, right? You have to be in the moment, and what happened before cannot be undone. The only thing that can happen is what you do next. And the best environment to do the right thing next is to be not emotionally reacting to what happened. Mm-hmm. It's about critically thinking about what happens next. Mm-hmm. And, that's the best way to operate and to keep going forward, and also to not put yourself under stress that's going to harm your health and your sleeping patterns and everything else, and continue to enjoy work as opposed to feel oppressed by it.
That's some solid advice. Looking at the future, we just look back, but if you look at the future, what is your plan? What are your dreams? What do you still want to achieve?
I think that I am nearing the finish line at Telenet. I think it's time there is a new generation of leaders there are complexities and technologies and things that are best in the hands of another generation. I think for myself right now, I want to make sure that the succession is a successful one. I'm hopeful and thinking that the next CEO will be Belgian. And, that's the main thing. And then I think in terms of there's a transaction happening with where we're putting these businesses under an umbrella for the Benelux. And I'd like to see that happen successfully. And then I like to map out other priorities for myself, living between Australia and Europe. I'm studying the art of transitioning from a 45-year professional career into what's next. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's doing it, who's listening to the podcast, I can recommend the book From Strength to Strength by Arthur Broeck. It's been a fantastic eye-opener for me. What basically, in a nutshell, he's talking about is you really have to cut it off. You really have to leave it behind. You're not going to... I remember my own father was constantly telling the same stories of his incredible successes, until the day he died. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, I was just over it. It's like, just cut it off and think about the things that made you successful and how they can make you successful in, the third or fourth, whatever it is, stage of your life. Mm-hmm. And, I think intellectually, I have a good idea of what that is. I need to internalize it and feel it in my heart and in my guts and go do it. So that's a big transition.
Yeah, of course. And on a scale from 1 to 10, how ready do you feel?
7.
It's already quite okay.
I'm working on it. I have some more time. I mean, I have probably another 12 months. And I think my people around here know about it. So if they're listening to the podcast, they won't be surprised. But we do have some super talented people here and some people that, that we know. And I think Liberty Global is pretty much in agreement that business in Belgium is a little bit, in America, they have an expression, inside baseball, right? You have to be kind of in it to get it. You got to wake up in the morning and look at HLN on your phone. Then you got to, read the TED, and then you got to listen to Radio 2 when you're on your way to work. And then you got to call your guys you went to university with and plan your ski trip and your bike trip and then blah, blah, blah. It's pretty much the way it works. So I can only go so far as a, outside looking in CEO. And so it's time to get one of your own back in.
Yeah.
What do you hope you can leave behind? What do you hope people will tell? I hope.
Well, I hope the unique culture of this company that, we're a company that, puts people first, with leaders who lead with empathy and from in front and behind, with a real capability when it comes to innovation, and with a strong desire to win. I mean, these are the fundamental factors. That this is why Telenet still has, I don't know if this is public information, but over 55% market share in our footprint, which is even dragged down a little bit by Brussels, where we have less than that, a lot less than that. But in kind of classic regional Flanders, we're 65%. So, I hope that all of those things underpin our success in the market and make this business sustainable. I always think you got to run it, you got to own it, like you got to own it forever, and invest in it and invest for the future. We're investing now for the next 10 years, basically, because we're putting fiber in and 5G and we're spending between fiber and 5G, we're spending about $700 million a year just on those two projects. And if we were just managing the business for the next 3 or 4 years, we never would do it. We'd just be, clipping the ticket. But so a sustainable future, and those underlying things that make Telenet is, I hope, what I would leave behind.
All right. So nice.
Yeah, indeed. Unless you have anything else you would like to share for our listeners.
I think I put it all out there.
Right.
Thank you very much
for this conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yes,
good.
Thanks. Volg onze verdere avonturen in episodes via LinkedIn of theroadtoangela.be.